You're listening to the Sex, Drugs, and Jesus podcast, where we discuss whatever the fuck we want to. And yes, we can put sex and drugs and Jesus all in the same bed and still be all right at the end of the day. My name is Devanin, and I'll be interviewing guests from every corner of this world as we dig into topics that are too risque for the morning show, as we strive to help you understand what's really going on in your life. There is nothing off the table, and we've got a lot to talk about, so let's dive right into this episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sex, Drugs, and Jesus podcast. Thank you for joining us again this week. I am super stoked to be talking to a woman by the name of Jules. This precious gem is not only a national bodybuilding champion, but she has gifted the world with a very transparent memoir called The Making of a Woman. Jules has opened up about growing up in a tough childhood home, not to mention surviving 3 years of sexual abuse from her babysitter, y'all. We talk about the power of negative words and how to overcome the negativity that has been spoken over us throughout our lives. My girl here is also into alternative lifestyles, baby, yes, and she is very much into domination. After our discussion about how to use a horse riding crop on submissives, I think I may just be next in line for a spanking. Jules, thank you so much for coming on the Sex, Drugs, and Jesus podcast today. Where we're going to be talking a lot about sex and a few other things. How are you feeling today?
Gosh, I am doing really well. Thank you, Dee, for setting this up and making this happen. This is going to be a lot of fun. I've been looking forward to it.
I've been looking forward to it, to talking to you. You are a very, very fucking strong lady on this show. You can use your chosen vernacular, whatever
Fantastic.
It may be. And so I tend to cuss a lot. You don't have to. This is all the shows are rated E, explicit. And not E for everyone, E for explicit. So feel free to just be yourself. And we're going to be talking a lot about a book that you've written called The Making of a Woman. Read through it. This is your life story. And in it, you've given the world a great gift, which is transparency. Why I do what I do, my podcast and everything is about transparency. When we go through tough times, I think the wrong thing to do is to try to sweep it under the rug and act like it never happened. I think the right thing to do is to at least tell somebody else so that they can benefit from it. And on the grand scale, like what you've done, is to document it in such a way that your wisdom will outlive you. And so you will be able to, it will, because now it's in book form and e-form and everything like that. And so as long as there's a world, someone will be able to access this. And so tell me, gosh, your inspiration for wanting to compile your experiences.
It's seeds that have been planted along the way. I think it was back even in college. I had a girlfriend who would hear bits and pieces of my story, and she would be like, Jules, you got to write a book. And I would just think to myself, I'm not writing a book. It's just my life. It's normal. Little did I know that it wasn't normal for other people. And so throughout the years, I've connected with various people who gave me the same message, like, girl, you need to. And I don't know if, just everything lined up, but I started putting together the timeline, which was very challenging because I had a lot of blackouts. I didn't have a full map of my life. And then I started working with Marlena, January of this year, in fact. And together, every week, we would meet and we would start chapter by chapter, putting this thing into a book. And it's almost like it's a life of its own. It's really exciting.
I can feel you. I've been working on my memoir. Shit, it feels like maybe like a good year and a half or two at this point. And I started the same way with a timeline. And a friend of mine who's an author who's written a crazy amount of books was told me, she was like, memoirs take forever to write. You would think it's easier to write about yourself, but it's not. It's much easier to
a lot of emotion.
But you just make some shit up. But when you're actually telling the truth, you got to be accurate and make sure of the dates and everything. And so,
Yep. Other people are involved. Yeah.
right. So you're a very, very interesting woman. I don't meet, you know, a lot of women who are very able and willing to talk about a lot of the deep stuff they've been through. And then there's also this other very athletic side of you too, with the weightlifting and the NPC championships, which I think that stands for National Physique Conference or something like that.
Committee. Yep.
And just female athleticism in and of itself is something that is, I still think, out of the norm. Women are still fighting for equivalent pay, with
Yeah.
pro athletes, pro athleticism and stuff like that. And just tell me a little bit about that. We're going to get into the juiciness of the book and the which that's included in the book too, but the trauma and the drama and all the sexy stuff. But I just think it's so intriguing, that you compete like this. So
yeah. And it was nothing I ever dreamt of doing. It wasn't like I want to be, I want to be a bodybuilder when I grow up. It was not on the wish list, but it was part of the healing process, which was super cool. And it's like I have two phases of life. I have the first phase, which is life before recovery. And then there's like the second phase, which is almost unbelievable at times, the areas I get to go into and things I get to experience. And so at the time, I got sober when I was 35. And of course, you got physically sober, then you get, emotionally sober and mentally sober. There's these phases you go through. It's kind of like this onion is peeling back. And one of the things, me being a whole body person, is that the physical aspect of me also needed that kind of healing, right? So it needed to be nourished. It needs to, all of those things. And so I started working out with a trainer when I turned 40. I think I'm just like any other woman at this stage, is like, it's okay, but I want something different. I meet a lot of women who are in this phase of life. And so I took this really big plunge and I went to a bodybuilding gym and I made an appointment to get my first kind of an assessment with a bodybuilder, a female bodybuilder. And I had such body image issues. It was terrible. And she wanted me to come in a two-piece bikini. Dee, I didn't even wear bikinis, let alone own a bikini. So here I am in my full back underwear and a sports bra, and the pictures, the before and after pictures, I still have them today. I think there's like a tint of green to me. I am beyond nauseated. I am so scared to do this. So, but I wanted that change desperately bad. So she wrote me up a meal plan. I'm not kidding when I say I did not get off the meal plan for over a year. No cheat meals. I drank that gallon of water every day. I mean, I was on it, like laser focus. Wow. And what happened is that I started to realize that my body would actually change. Like my upper body really started to take form. And I was like, well, this is quite unbelievable. And so, of course, I wanted more and I wanted more. It felt good. And so then, fast forward, I thought, well, someone said, you want to do a show? And I was like, oh my God, am I even qualified to do a show? And I did. And I took third out of 3 people. It was one of those kinds of shows where most people would have been like, okay, now Jules, just take your little trophy and go back home. And then I started working with a trainer that really showed me how to sculpt my body, change my physique. And it was last year around, I think in December, in fact, I had done a show and I didn't do real well. And one of the judges had called and said, you know what, let's put her in this show. That's the last one of the year. And I knocked it out of the park. I took a first, I took a second, and I took a third overall. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And first in my class, which qualified me for nationals, which happened this year in Pittsburgh. I mean, I am beyond. I'm not kidding you when I say I just wanted to get the cellulite off my legs. I had no intention of doing any of this. And I think that's the beauty of it, is that I wasn't in my own way. I couldn't talk myself out of it because I didn't even know I was going there. And I'm grateful to say that at a national level of competitors from Canada, the US, and Mexico, I was in the top 3. I took home a 3rd place trophy on nationals my first time, which is unbelievable. I was game in first, 8th to 10th place. So once again, I didn't even know that's where I was going. But now I'm hooked. Now I love it. I influence so many people just in general conversation. I mean, it's an unbelievable experience.
I can tell by how you're glittering like a star system over there.
I used to wear Spanx. Are you familiar with what those are?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I'm from Texas, which means I'm already at the 90 to 100 degrees, no matter what, right? I would wear Spanx underneath blue jeans because I was mortified about the way my thighs looked. It was this hatred I had within. So to get to this side of that same spectrum it's miraculous because it was completely opposite of what it used to be.
Okay, so what would you say to people who have body image issues? Because you're saying like you used to hate, a portion of your body and everything like that, and that's not healthy. So you
Mm.
found a better way. So what would your suggestion be?
See, this has happened. This was part of my process of getting sober. So first off, what it had to do is if I have hate in me, that's what I'm going to exude, right? I'm going to exude that hate and it's going to come back at me. It's just this vicious cycle. So what I did is I wasn't comfortable with the whole just accept your body the way it is. That wasn't going to work for me. So what I did is I would look at other women, bodybuilders or women with amazing thighs, and I would do a screenshot and I was actually put it in my photos of my phone. And I would make that like, I want to get like that. That's my goal. I want to do this, right? So now I have this visual. I'm a big meditator. I'm always turning inward and figuring out like, what's in my way? Am I in my way? And then I physically did things. Of course, I went to the gym. I burned out a lot of stress in there,
Mhm.
but I will do things for myself. Like I get a massage every Tuesday. It's more for mechanics at this stage, but there is something amazing that takes place when we start moving around that energy within our body. And, anger and rage is energy. So for me, it was a whole body transformation, but you'd be surprised at that when you put you put your scope on, you got your eyes on something. If you verbalize that, it's almost like the universe hears you and you start seeing things like an amazing picture, for instance, that went into my phone, or, this particular woman who I really admired and I wanted to ask questions. I mean, it's almost like source opens it up and be like, okay, here's some things you can try. So I don't know if that actually answered the question, but that's how I did it, very creatively.
It does. So y'all, what Jules is saying is, if you have a problem with the way you look, or really anything about you, rather than internalizing that anger and ultimately poisoning yourself in the process,
Mm.
find a way to turn it positive. In her case, she did a visualization. Some people may do like a physical vision board, which is something
Yes,
that I
yes.
do. But basically, what she's saying is a very new age way of, okay, if you don't like whatever it is you don't like, find an image of how you would like it to be, and then focus on that and use that to rewire your attitude and your brain and your focus. And then you will find the doors opening for you to achieve your goal. So don't internalize the negative, make it a challenge of sorts, and then visualize your way up out of it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And just get to the gym, period. It's healthy. It's healthy just to go on the treadmill. Baby steps.
It is, because I work with a dietitian at the Department of Veterans Affairs, and they say, just 3 days a week of 45 minutes of elevated heart rate, some sort of activity. Of course, with eating good too, is enough. So you don't have to do 5 days a week, hours each day at the gym in order to lose weight or to get in better shape. It can,
Exactly. Yeah.
and what you said is true. Massage does I'm a licensed massage therapist too.
Oh, then I'm
And,
speaking your language.
and it is an energetic practice. Yeah, you are
Mhm.
speaking my language because I did a lot of chakra balancing and all kinds of energy work and stuff like that too, because a lot of our emotional and mental and spiritual problems manifest physically.
Oh,
And
yes,
so
absolutely. Dis-ease. Yeah.
mhm. When I was in school, the instructor, like, I don't know, she had been doing it like, I don't know, 30 years or something like that. One of the OG instructors, and she was also like an empath and very sensitive too. And she was just feeling around for knots like in the like collarbony area. That's not anatomically speaking, collarbony. That's just me in the collarbony area.
But we know what you're talking about.
I just had to put the disclaimer out there that I am like trained in this stuff, and here I am saying the collarbony area. And, and she found the knot and pressed it, and the girl broke out crying, not because the knot hurt, but because there was an emotional blockage in that knot. It was so intense that the instructor, and I felt some type of way about this shit at the time. I'm more mature now, but the instructor made the rest of us leave the room. It wasn't break time. We had to get out because of the what was the emotional release. She needed to talk to this woman and see and deal with her with what was going on. It wasn't none of our business. And so we had to go.
Yeah.
I'm not one, I don't like to be thrown out of places. I like, but
But it wasn't your fault this time.
yeah, I'm not drunk and hugging the toilet at the club. Not
See?
this time. So but the stuff, but it does work, and there's like a lot of health benefits from massages beyond the
Oh,
physical.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so, well, congratulations on your championships and on your accomplishments and everything like that. And I hope many more fabulous, positive doors open for you, and unexpectedly so.
Yes. Thank you.
So, so your book covers a lot of childhood trauma. There's issues with the parents, a dating life, and everything like that. I saw a lot of moving around and stuff like that. As you say, you were running away and things like that. Who do you feel like your target audience is?
Originally when we sat down and wrote this book, I really wanted to just reach the girl in the back of the room. So many times in my life, I have been that girl. I have felt inferior. I have felt not a part of, and sometimes just unwelcomed. So initially, it was that girl who was dealing with all of that stuff inside, but could not let the world see it. And now what I've noticed is, and the feedback I've gotten, I mean, Dee, the book launches tomorrow. It's not even out yet. And the feedback I'm getting back is from other, like from a mother, for instance, saying, thank you. Because now I know when my daughter does A, B, and C, it's because of this. I've had men come and give the feedback and be like, this makes sense why my wife, fill in the blank when we go to a lifestyle event. Or, so it's blooming into something much larger than I had ever expected. So at the point, I have to say that I hope the book reaches any and everybody that it's supposed to reach, because it's kind of already happening.
Fair. I like that you started with a certain focus and then you have been open to the way
Yeah.
it has grown.
Yeah.
Because you being, it seems like you identify as a woman, and so I just let everybody tell me how they identify their pronouns and everything.
Mhm.
I try not to use even sir or ma'am anymore. I just come up with other things. So when I say you identify as woman, that's me speaking my metaphysical new age talk. And so naturally, that it would be natural to feel like that's who would probably benefit the most,
Mm.
you
Yeah.
know, starting out. And so, but somebody's gonna have a daughter,
Mm.
a sister, and those guys are gonna come to you and be like, I don't get this girl, help me, and everything like that. So like you said, everybody can read this. Now, there was some some one-liners at the start of the book. You were talking about some things, some negative things people may say to
Mm.
to women or to people in general. A lot of these things get said to people coming from the LGBTQ background, like myself, the low income places. I'm going to read some of them. You and then I want to know if this is something that if anyone has told you specifically before. You said you won't get anywhere in life. You won't finish school. You're a loser. You're a whore. You're an addict. You're a dropout. You're a slut. Capital SLUT. So, did anyone say any of those things to you in life?
All of the above. All of the above. The power of the word. I mean, those, just to even hear you say my words just makes it's just pressure. I mean, there's some strong words there, and they do impact probably more than we even realize.
Okay, so then what I love even more about your story, a lot of people hear this, but then then that tape plays in their head for the rest of their life, and then it never gets rewritten. So like when I was young, my dad, said I didn't deserve stuff, and things like that.
I was too.
Yeah, my dad said that, I didn't deserve stuff, and things like that, apart from the physical abuse, I was being very verbal. It took a long time for me to be able to play positive tape in my head. And so what I know will happen is people read through your book, you know, just having this listed out in words, it's something very healing when we see somebody else is going through the similar thing that we've been through. Even before you get to the good part and turning it around and stuff like that, just someone will feel less alone. And that in and of itself gives people the strength to keep going and perhaps to live another day.
Yeah, totally.
Now you define your story as not another girl gets sober
Mhm.
story. I've read where you were saying like you really feel like you've made impactful change. So what's the difference in, if it would have been just a girl get sober story versus what you've created?
I see women in recovery who, girl gets sober. They clean up, they, go through detox, all of the stages that we do. And then, continue on with the 9 to 5 and very successfully live a beautiful life. I didn't fall into that trail, we'll say. Like for some reason, well, I know the reason. Source wanted something else because clearly I can't stop until I get to where I'm supposed to be going here. But I just realized that there was something, my purpose. I had a purpose much larger than just getting sober. And in in a sense, it's like I endured the first phase of life because I have now the experience, which means now I can make change. And so then again, once I sobered, got over to this side, and I know, even with the words that you just read, I can connect to you because I have that experience. So I think because I have that ability to see this journey, this picture like this, that's my goal is I want to, and even if your story is completely different than mine, I don't know, maybe something, totally off the charts compared to mine. But the thing that we do have in common are feelings of despair. We both know what that feels like. We know what jealousy feels like. We know what fear feels like. We know what joy is, all of those things. That's the language of the heart. And so those are the things that I connect. I can connect with any human being if they're open to it, according to that. So what I have seen is that that's how I've connected with people. And so I have just found more than I ever experienced how many people are drawn to that. The fact that I can speak at a very raw and vulnerable, exposed level, I have courage. That's one of the beautiful gifts that I have from my maker or from my higher powers, that I have courage to not follow my ego. That took a lot of years practicing that. But that means that I will sit here and have this conversation with you, no matter what the outcome is, because all I have to do is be authentic, right? And so that's what I'm noticing, is if I stay in that lane of authenticity and being completely true to myself, the people who're supposed to fall away, fall away. And the ones who are supposed to come in, come in. And this is how that journey continues. I mean, I've been able to do miraculous things. I am a rescue scuba diver. I didn't even know how to swim when I met my husband. I have a day skipper certificate, which means I can sail a 55-foot boat by myself. I have these experiences that I would have never even asked for. I'm from the Midwest, D. I don't need to be in any water. Any water for us was lake water. It was nothing. So that's what I'm finding is, as I, keep moving forward, I'm drawing people, and we all need to we all need to connect. It's really quite amazing.
It is, it is, it is, it is, it is. And I can't get over the star-kissed look in your eyes. Like you just have like ending joy just overflowing and is enough to fill everyone else's cups. And I say this on my show all the time, but it's one of my favorite songs, a collaboration that Dave Koz did, and the name of the song is Start All Over. And the lyrics are, as long as you are breathing, you can start all over again. And I just don't feel like it can be overstated. You're getting the feedback from people already who are in pain, and know people are in pain before the book even comes out.
Yeah.
And because a lot of people need to do a reset. And then the thing is, if you can gather the strength to overcome whatever it is that has happened to you or that you've done or whatever, that second shot at life tends to be better than the first go around.
Absolutely.
Which is what you're saying here. So it was bad, and now it's like so much better. I was telling my friend, my friend is also the attorney who was helping me when I was, a drug dealer and homeless and everything. It'd been 9 years since we'd been able to sit down and really chat, and we were on Zoom for 4 hours the other day.
Wow.
And I was telling her, aside the fact that then I was 127 pounds and near death, and now I weigh, I'm able to keep weight on and everything like that. She was just like in awe looking at me, and I was telling her I take care of stuff better than I did before. My car stays clean, my home stays clean. I eat healthy. I don't eat fast food anymore. It's like a whole new thing. Now, so I'm saying all that to just really reinforce what you were just saying. We didn't just get sober. We took on it's a whole new life. It's a whole new identity. It's a whole new person. And so, and then you too, my audience, going to be sitting there with this same twinkle in your eye that Jules has. And
and I think a lot of it in the beginning, while the drinking, the drugging was so strong, is because I was not in line with who I was supposed to be. Right. I was still dealing with the trauma. I was a 9th grade dropout. I mean, I was struggling with everything outside of me. And so I think the ability to, like you say, hit that reset button, what it allowed me to do, we say in the rooms of recovery, people, places, and things have to change, right? That is a really big demand. I mean, because that's everything in my world. But I wanted a different life. So when that happened, then when you move all that crap out of the way, right? And who else do you have? You and and that energy, that universe, that whatever it is, that's all that's left. And I think that's when you really get to tap in and just really see, like, who am I? By the way, what do I want? Things like that.
Who am I and what do I want? I heard that similar. I heard that point from a meditative circle. I can't remember if it was Yasmin Bolin or Louise Hay. I think it was Yasmin Bolin. Yasmin Bolin has to do with moonology and taking signs and cues from the moon. And Louise Hay is the creator of Hay House Media, and that has given us a world of thought. I'll put it
I
to you
learned it
like,
from Deepak Chopra.
okay, from him.
Deepak.
Okay.
And there are three, because it's one of the meditations. Who am I? What do I want? And what is my dharma?
Okay, so it's 3 separate ones.
Yep.
You
But
know
those
what?
are some really powerful. When's the last time you asked yourself, or better yet, somebody asked you, Dee, what do you want? I don't know. I'm just always working on what I don't want. I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be homeless. I don't. Yeah.
Yeah. So what Jules is talking about now is minding what you focus on and reversing the polarity. And so it's more of a positive vibration. It'll get you further in life if you focus on what I do want. You know, if the neighbor is giving you grief, I would love to have a good neighbor as opposed to I don't want a bad neighbor.
Mhm.
Or if you hate your job, I would love to have a better job as opposed to I hate this job. It's about thinking with a positive vibration versus negative.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
See, I knew I was gonna like you, girl.
This is awesome. I told you this is gonna be fun.
So I want to talk more in detail about some of the trauma
Okay.
because it's super cool you're willing to be transparent about it, and I know other people have been through similar things. Now you had I'll say it's a unique relationship with your dad, and and I'll let you give us the details that you want. But in the book, you're talking about how you really didn't get a chance to step into his world until after he was dead. I read where you're looking through reading old newspapers, perhaps, and old shoe boxes
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And there was a quote in there that I wrote down in that same section about emotional codependence. And you said that when we cannot help ourselves, we quietly take, especially by overgiving. And so I want you to talk about your dad and what you meant by that quote.
Read it to me again. The
Your
quote
quote
that you want me to reference.
in reference to emotional codependence, you said, when we cannot help ourselves, we quietly take, especially by overgiving.
So that's there's multi levels to that, right? That's a pretty deep comment.
Mhm.
But really what it is like, if there's a gift, right? If I'm giving a gift, you're receiving it. Most people think, oh, you're the one that should be happy. The gift giving is really for the giver. I get to give. I'm the one who gets the most joy out of this. There's something as my father in the relationship unfolded and went through its rocky terms and back and forth, the phase of life that you're speaking of right there was, I learned not to expect things from this man. He was my dad, yes, but I no longer had a relationship with him because of the estranged 25 years or whatnot in between. And so I learned, instead of visiting, going to expect something, some sort of connection, make me feel like your daughter. I want to feel like this is family. Okay, well, that's putting a lot on him. And so what I learned to find that peace and that desperation to rid that is that I was told, just treat him like the old man he is. Just love him right where he's at. That's all my part is. I don't have to go in and fix anything. He was an older man. He lived in the Midwest as well. There was a lot of things. Technology could have made his life easier, all of those things. But that's not mine to give. I just supposed to treat him and love him where he's at.
Interesting. Can you talk about the experience that you included about how I believe it was your mother, somebody got pregnant by fucking, I think it was the postman next door. There was some sort of business attached to the house.
That was my dad's mom.
Okay, that was your dad's mom. Okay,
Yep.
that's the connection there.
Yep.
Okay, and so then we have So that's how his emotional trauma was starting, because his mom was in a position where she got pregnant and then she wasn't able to get married, and that was a big no-no, even more so than it is now back then. And so, writing this, he had a hard time because his parents had a hard time, and therefore you had a hard time.
And remember, this is back in the 40s. I mean, there's nothing like what it is today.
And so now so it sounds like what you're talking about here is how trauma seems to pay itself forward into each generation unless it's stopped. And so, or as they say, hurt people, or as they say in some of the spiritual circles, generational curses, if you will. What advice do you have to people who may not yet be able to connect the dots and see, okay, my parents gave me a rough time. We had an abusive sort of relationship. I wonder what they went through to make them this way as well. What can I do to be sure my children don't have the same shit too?
Right.
So,
That's a lot of turning inward. Everything you just described right there is very insightful stuff. And for me, as I became the age that my mom was when she had me, when I started reflecting back, now that I'm in those shoes, again, this was now in the 70s. My mom had me in the early 70s. There weren't pamphlets laying around about, domestic violence or, sexual abuse. I mean, this is a very prideful time. And my mom wasn't, she was not going to reach out for help, so question. So yeah, it required me to have empathy for her, which then ultimately, when I found empathy for my mother, I was able to find empathy in a lot of other situations. Like, mom and dad, those ties are tight. But when I saw that, I've also seen my mom struggle with things that I struggled with. When you say that generational curse, sexual abuse is a learned behavior. That's how this is passed on from time to time, to person, to generation. One of the most powerful things I get to do is I get to bury the seed. I get to bury it. It's not going any further than right here. There's a lot of power in that. But ultimately, I needed to know what was fucking everything up in order for me to figure it out, then able to have that kind of control. Mm-hmm. And that's a legacy right there. It's like, it's not going any further than here.
I know that's right. Not today, Satan.
Not today.
And we're going to talk about Bobby the Babysitter next. And, when I read about Bobby the Babysitter and how we're talking about what we're talking about with it, the same sort of trauma repeating itself in each generation. And we see how R. Kelly was just, I believe, convicted for like the sexual assault of the minors. People like you and I are gonna, and thinking people like my beautiful audience are gonna look at him and not judge him, but look at him and think, I wonder what happened to him. Yeah. To not that it justifies anything, but there's always more to it than, okay, that person's just a predator.
Oh yeah, so much more. And another way also that it helps to be able to just accept things that I can't wrap my brain around, like trauma or this, any of these really big things, is I just repeat to myself that everybody has their own contract with their God. Everybody has their own contract. So no matter what I'm doing, and it may not look like it's right or wrong or whatnot, it's like, it doesn't matter because this is between me and my God. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And that really released me from clinging on to all of the BS that's going on in our world, all the things that make me frustrated and that anger and all that. It's like that. And I think it's a kind of a, branch off of you do you and I'll do me. It's just a little bit more spiritual approach.
Yeah, you can tell that to your Texas Republicans so they can leave women the fuck alone.
I have to live in this state. That's why I'm saying everybody has their own contract with their God. Like, you will meet your maker.
A little bit of karma in there too.
Ooh, nice.
So Bobby the babysitter. I mean, that name y'all sounds all bouncy and everything, but we're really not talking about the best character here. So 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 something happened. Your mom left you with Bobby to babysit you, and then his younger brother David. When David went to sleep, what did Bobby do?
So this is even before my mom remarried into that family. So that he was still babysitting us while the parents were going out on their date. And that was the very first incident. We lived in a trailer. That's definitely par for course of the story. And we had a toy room. And if you can imagine, it's a very bare room, but there's, mirrors on the closets, it's back in that day. And he had a magazine, and it was, I don't know, Playboy or whatever it was, I don't know, but he was flipping through it and he says, "This is what you're going to look like when you grow up." And I'm kind of looking at this, having absolutely no idea besides seeing my mom, what a woman looked like. And then he, flipped and said, "And that's what you're going to do when you grow up." And it was some sort of sexual act. And he goes, "Do you want to start growing up right now? Do you want to practice right now?" And I think at that stage, I was 7. I want nothing more than you to like me. I really want you to like me. I think that's what kids go through. And I think we even go through it as adults. And so I was also very influential at that time. And so that was the beginning of probably about 3 years of daily ongoing abuse like that.
3 years is a long time.
It is. And it went to different places as well.
And see, that's a big deal because I learned, well, like, I'm a licensed hypnotherapist too. I learned, a lot about the mind and the way it works because that's what
Mhm.
hypnotherapy is all about.
Yeah.
Like, we're not talking about like making people quack like ducks on stage. We're about actual, real
Yeah.
mental health work done in tandem with with like psychiatrists and mental health professionals. Like every little thing we see and come in contact with leaves an impression upon us, whether we know it or not, and or whether we're willing to receive that fact or not. And so to say that that happened, daily for 3 years,
Mhm.
you know, I mean, that sort of, you have to be a really, really tough bitch to be able to overcome that and get to where we read like later on in the book where you're, you come up out of that and you're, able to be comfortable sexually. So
Mhm.
so tell us about the complications you feel like that sexual abuse caused you in your relationships when you were trying to, become a woman, branch out, explore sexual experience things. How did it mess you up?
You made a great point of the impressions that it makes on the brain, right? And if you think year after year after year, those 3 years, it became the way that it's now a recording. It's just how I act and how I act in certain situations with men. And what happened then is because of the abuse, again, it's all energy. I'm completely doing things against my will. I think as a little person, I was not able to talk to anybody about this. I have this whole new life. There's just a lot of buildup inside me. And so, as I got older and into my teens, I would rage because all of that energy had to come out. And I was just a mess. I didn't know how to deal with emotions. I didn't know how to deal with, someone giving me a hug or heaven forbid, a man complimenting me because it was so like, no, I know this is completely opposite. And so what happened during the abuse, you acquire tools, we'll call them tools. Disassociation is one of them. And I see that as that's a gift because my body cannot endure this. And so we are literally going to just step out of this for a little bit, right? So that's a blessing for me that I don't have to remember everything. And it also teaches me that always to be wondering, what do they really want? So now my trust is really gone. It's gone. And then it also teaches me how to maneuver people, to manipulate. So I take these things that have served me very well those years, unknowingly bring them right into my adult life. And so I can't connect with people. In fact, I can't trust you. I don't have that sort of intimacy. And so for the majority of my life, I was always detached from people. And I think that, as you read in the book, it's like when I came into the rooms of recovery, I mean, I had walls of armor. I didn't trust anybody. In fact, I was always waiting for that shoe to drop, because that's what we got to do. I'm resilient. We got to keep going. And so that's the first place I saw a man cry. And I was astounded. What? I mean, the women in the rooms, they would give me that hug and say, Jules, I'll see you tomorrow. What? So it's like I had to unlearn a lot of this. But like I mentioned a bit ago about that onion peeling back. I have been married to my husband now for 7 years. We've been together. There has been, God totally gave me him because I needed a super strong man because I didn't trust. You were always going to cheat on me. You were always planning a way to move out and leave me, high and dry. And so, I've had to vocalize this. It's something that it is out on the table. We talk about these things, but it's amazing how deep. It was 3 years and I'm 49. Look at the ratio there. 3 years, the impact that has made on my entire life. It's unbelievable, actually. But it filters through pretty much every spot of your life, of my life at least.
Okay, and then when did alcohol what was all of your like drugs of choice or alcohol? When did that come into the mix? And when did you become dependent on it in a negative way?
I actually have a picture, like a regular paper picture of me in a high chair. And if you remember the trays would click on and well, this was the metal tray. That's like the era we're in. And I have a baby bottle and my uncle is next to me with his old Milwaukee bottle. And I have beer in my bottle. So I'm not even two. And alcohol has already been introduced, right? And this is back in the day where if a kid is crying, you put a little this on its gums and he's going to be fine. Put, like calm his nerves with some, I don't know, brandy or whatever. That is this era. It's not that long ago. And so this is just part. And also being in the Midwest. It's Norwegian and German. You drink. We drink all the time up there, right? I remember seeing my uncle have the can of beer in the council as we were driving. It was just the norm. So I kept up with the norm. I smoked, I drank. And what happened then is I realized that if I drank enough, it became the Band-Aid. It became my solution. So alcohol was not the problem. It was the solution. Because now I don't have to deal with any emotion, good or bad, because really, let's face it, I don't know how to, and I can be whatever you want me to be. It was a solution until it stopped working for me. And that is when I started hitting my bottoms. I think there were about 3 of them. And it was just like, then that despair, and it's almost like the alcohol just starts taking the life out of you, opposed to the other way around. And yeah, that brought me right up to age 35, where it was like, it's got to happen now, or it's going to end up in a different outcome.
When you say you had 3 bottoms, were you like admitted to a hospital? Like describe like what your bottom is or was.
I love it when people are like, so what was your bottom? It's like, that is a state of mind, and there are many of them. Yeah. So I had like 3 bottoms. It seemed like, I bounced real hardcore. Yes, one of those times I was hospitalized. I tried to take my own life. Another time I was out in the depths of Texas in a really bad situation. My mom had to come out with a U-Haul, pick my ass up and drive me back to California. When I'm drinking in the morning and taking Xanax in the afternoon. And for me, it's the emotional bottom. It's
Mhm.
when you have no more hope. It's when you're like, why am I really here? This is more painful than enjoyable. And the thought of death is very appealing. It's not a great place at all. But we call it the gift of desperation.
Well, I'm glad you are still with us today to be the shining jewel that you are.
Ah, thank you.
And so you've mentioned the name source several times during this interview. That name appears multiple times throughout your book, and this seems to be your spiritual higher power. Can you describe to me who source is and how you were able to draw strength from source throughout your life?
In the beginning, there was no source. The parents, in fact, who were supposed to protect me were absent as well. So I had no belief in anything besides, I got to fight my way through this. And so I was totally on my own will. And
Mhm.
so when I got into recovery, and it's probably at that 9-month stage where finally I can sit down in the chair, the rages have settled down, the mood swings are, at halt. And I remember, hearing that I've got to find something bigger than me if I intended to stay sober. And I'd hear people joke about, oh, just a doorknob, or it's, it just can't be another person, right? And I hated the idea of God. I was like, this is fucked up. It's a bunch of followers. They all sit in their little church every Sunday and then pretend like everything's perfect. I mean, that's kind of like, that was the persona I had. And so the whole, and especially also, I'm in the Bible Belt. I really don't like the presence of this God thing, right? There's a lot of judgers who go, under that umbrella. And so for me, I came out of one of these meetings, and it was probably on the topic of source. And this is at the point in my life where I'm starting to be able to taste my food. I can start to smell things. Like my body is starting to recover. And I remember in this really soupy, thick heat, I came out, and all of a sudden there's like this wind, this little breeze, and it like wrapped around me, and it just stopped me in my tracks. And I was like, oh, that source. Nobody can move the wind. Like, that source. And I took that and I held on to it. So anytime I'd be out and I'd feel a little breeze, I would say, thank you, source. Like, thank you for the reminder. I would marker on my hand, HP, because I worked in the hospitals. So we washed our hands all the time. But that was a constant reminder that there was something bigger than me. And then what happened is then I would start to feel the sun. Then I got sober enough to realize that I am connecting with another individual. The energy between even you and I right now, I don't know who else makes that, So I really started to dig in and look for this source any and everywhere. Because they say, God is everywhere, right? And there's sometimes where I'm like, I just don't see God there. So I don't think I have it figured out all the way, but I have it figured out as much as I need to at this stage of where I'm at in the journey. And it's also that amazing feeling. We were just talking about the bottoms, and bottoms are cold and they're dark and they're lonely, isolation. When I think about source, it's the opposite of that experience. It's that my heart opens up. You talk about the twinkle in my eye.
Yeah.
There's just like this, and it's like, oh God, when you're on fire, when you leave, coffee with your friend or whatever, you're like, yes, that's what I recognize as source. That's what I decided to make my source. And it's working. It's working very well because I can connect to a lot of people under that influence.
Well, I'm glad you found your higher power, and I'm glad you're able to enliven the spiritual side of you. Because it's like I tell people all the time, like, I don't care what you believe in, you just got to believe in something, because the unseen parts of us, mind, body, soul, spirit, which most people, no matter what they believe in, will at least agree we've got that. but those unseen parts of us need to be fed and nurtured and taken care of and paid attention to. At least we fall out of balance if we don't,
Yeah.
which can lead
Yeah.
to all kinds of problems. So feed your spirits, people. Find something to believe in.
Hmm.
Um, and I feel you. Like being in the Bible Belt and around a bunch of conservative Christians can make you hate everything God is supposed to stand for. So it can be quite difficult to find your footing. And so I commend you for overcoming the any kind of negative emotion that you may have had about that, and finding something positive in the spiritual spectrum.
God, thank God for that.
Hallelujah. So, so now let's switch gears, and you've given us all the deep stuff. Let's talk about Matt. I want to talk about Maddie, because Matt, I was reading on y'all's first date. You
Mhm.
said that you did everything on this first date that you're not supposed to do on the first date. I think y'all met at like a coffee shop, and he was there first, and you had on, I think, like heels and a suit. And so you walk in there, and then he starts sweating and everything like that. Sounds like he's intimidated just by the way you are when you walk through the door. And so you decide to turn up the confidence even more. And then so you go over there and
It was
you
just hanging right there. I had to grab it.
well, I could do so much with that.
I know, I'll leave it right there.
And you were, because on most first dates, people only show a version of themselves or a portion of themselves. You are all in. You said this is the first time you've done that, and you're telling him that you're a dominant female, or female dominant, I think is the technical term. You're always going to have girlfriends, and just different things like that most people are, most of them their first date, oh, I like cats and cream and whatever the case may be. Like, no, I'm going to dominate your ass. I'm always going to have girls on the side. How
You're
does
gonna
that
love
work?
it.
How does that work for you? Now you say the man was intimidated yet intrigued. Tell me about this first date experience, and now this has evolved into an open-minded marriage, if I'm not mistaken. So
Yeah, absolutely. And, going back to the point where you just said, like, we try to put on this, this facade of what I want you to think I am, right? People pleasing in a sense, right?
yeah.
And all my life I had that mask on. And so now I'm free of the mask, and I've gained many gifts because of that mask being gone. There was no way I was going to put a mask on for somebody I didn't even know to make them feel better, because I'm gonna have to go home with that crappy feeling that I had the mask on. So yes, it was. We have great stories because he was in a long-term marriage. It was it was breaking up. It was very asexual. He was a traveler for work. I mean, just kind of the classic, executive. And so, here comes, Jules clicking in, click, 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 click. And I know the power of my, my presence. And so, yeah, I just bring that volume right up and just really, really bask in my confidence. Right. So yeah, I was explaining to him, these are the things I like, and he jokes that he had, underneath the table, he's like, like CBT. He's like, what? CBT. Like he's Googling it to figure out what the hell I'm talking about, or, what's a DS relationship, or, a female-led relationship, or head of household. And so we, had coffee, and in fact, it was a real eclectic type of coffee shop. So if you can figure, it's kind of dark, and the big wood tables. And so we got all finished, and I got up and walked in. I said, oh, can you take care of that? It was my little teacup or whatever. So he threw that away, and he's, and here in the South, men are very much gentlemen. So it's not too far out of line, but I push it out of line. And so we're making our way to the door, and it's one of these really thick, like oak doors. And I don't know if a man, like, how do you push the door open and you go first? There's always the big question. So anyway, what he did is he pushed that big door open, gave it a shove, and I took a step forward, and the door bounced back, and it smacked me in the ass. And just instinctively, I turned to him and said, we will work on that. And he was like, ah. he's never been talked to like this. He's never, like he walked me to the car and I said, thank you. And I got in my car and I drove away. I mean, this is like a powerful man and he's getting nowhere with me. And it's not like I'm trying to be a bitch. I'm just like, dude, you haven't earned any of this. Do you not know the work I have done? Like, I cherish myself. And I'm also a professional at this point as a dom. So it's clearly, it's not going to happen. What? You're going to kiss me? No, absolutely not. Men kiss my feet, but you're not kissing my lips. So, so it was a process, but it was a lot of fun because he wanted to learn everything about it. I gave him reading assignments. Remember Ethical Slut? That's a great book for him to learn about, life of a female dominant, those sorts of things. And there was a little bit of protocol in the beginning. And then there was the moment when he popped me up on the counter and said, listen, Jules, we can explore an amazing sexual life, but I need 50-50 in a relationship. And D, I didn't even respond. I didn't even, oh, what are you asking me? You're asking me to give you control? Like, I almost asked him to leave. Like I was ready to end the relationship. I was like, absolutely not. I know where that goes. And then, but there was something where I'm like, what does that even look? What is a partnership? So that was the beginning of what we have now. And because I didn't have the template of what a traditional marriage was, and he didn't want anything that the traditional marriage had, we were able to create this sexual journey of exploration, but as partners. So, and of course, I have this beautiful, bag of tools in this area, right? He's like a kid in a candy store for like the first 3 years. We're going to some great, adult clubs overseas, and Cap Dog, which is a nudist colony. And I mean, just a lot of different experiences. But then we got to create with that honesty, and we talk about jealousy. I had a lot of shit come up. The layers of that onion. Oh my God. Sometimes they were just ripping off. Jealousy. Oh my God. I never really even had experienced that. I never let myself be vulnerable enough to give a shit about somebody, to be jealous of them. It was an emotion I didn't have a lot of practice with. Mm-hmm. So I am constantly in the making. I'm always working on something, because just like the disassociation, like just because I got sober doesn't mean that we're going to clear the slate and now you're all back. I would like completely implode. I mean, I can't handle all that. And so layer by layer by layer. And so that's where we're at right now we've had some amazing, sexy fun, a lot of sexy fun in a lot of different places of the world. And yeah, we're not done yet.
Nor should you be. Now you mentioned being a professional dom, and you have incredible photos, as we were discussing before we got on air. And you're holding, like you told me, it's a riding crop.
Riding crop.
Riding crop.
I was trying to cue you.
Right. And so, hey, I have a very submissive nature, and so feel free, darling. And so I want to know when you got into, because you went from a history of sexual trauma, which closed you up, and now not only are you able to have a healthy relationship, but you're able to explore sexually comfortably. You were able to open up again. Mm-hmm. And you told us how, through your work in the program and, your spiritual journey. And of course, all the details are in the book. Mm-hmm. I want to know, how did you, it's one thing to be comfortable sexual, huge triumphant victory just there alone. And right. When did you take it to, it sounds like you're getting to a bondage discipline, sadomasochism, BDSM community. And I want to know, what do you do with that riding crop exactly?
So to be very honest, the sexual exploration didn't happen till after the riding crop. That all took place afterwards.
What?
Yes. So I got, because, it's like I've been in the DS world pretty much my adult life.
What does DS mean?
Huh?
What is
DS? Pardon me. Dominant,
okay.
Submissive.
Okay.
So the DS world. And so I mean, that was the career I had because I did it as a lifestyle. And then I realized that I could make a very good living on it. And I think and we were speaking earlier about like metaphysics and the energies and things that you really can't explain. This, at this point, goes in that category, because the first inkling I hear from people who are unfamiliar with any sort of DS or bondage or any of this sort of stuff, like energy exchange, is they equate the abuse with men when I was younger, equated in the me abusing men as I got older. So there is the stigma, the stereotype. Now, what really happened is I endured this. I endured these energies. I endured this sort of trauma. I healed through it. And then I actually made peace to learn why men do what they do. Why, I mean, I studied them. I learned about the mind of a submissive male. I learned that I can provide them a space that society says is a complete taboo. And in fact, I'm going to provide this space, and I'm not only going to give that space, I'm going to encourage it. And I'm going to exchange loving energies with you. And even though I may have that riding crop in my hand, it's like you're going to dinner. It doesn't matter what you're going to eat. You're going to the event of dinner. You are coming, and I'm going to hold space, and we're going to exchange energy. It doesn't matter what I use, right? So that is really what this is. And so just like we were talking a little bit ago, that dark energy and that really light, open heart energy, when I go into that space, I understand what it feels like to have a secret. And I understand what it feels like to be seen as the black sheep because of something I enjoy. And I'm sure you definitely understand. You have this experience, right? And a lot of my gay friends in recovery makes me sick to hear the shit that they had to go through. So yes, I adore my men. I adore them. Without them, I cannot exchange energy. But I mean, it's phenomenal. And the fact that I have that mental knowledge and the physical knowledge is I can provide quite a bit in that area, actually.
What can you provide with that riding crop? Like,
that riding crop. It could be a reminder.
like, well, say you were going to, go ahead. It could be a reminder or what else?
So it could be just a little reminder, a little tap, tap, kind
Okay.
of like herding cats, right? Oh, tap, tap, getting out of line. It could be a quick reminder of like, kind of like when your mom would ever backhand you, you'd be like, oh, that kind of response. And it also can be used as a warm up. So I thoroughly enjoy over the knee spankings. I love to put grown men over my lap, and I love to give them spankings. And so I may start with having them on a bench with that riding crop. You got those sparkly eyes.
Mhm.
I love it. You're like, yes, ma'am.
Oh gosh, we were down on Bourbon Street because I live here in Baton Rouge, and we just go down to New Orleans all the time. And there's this lady who has come to Bourbon Street, and she's bald, and she walks around with her tits out, and she'll have on some sort of something fun around the bottom, and she has a paddle, a thick board, and she walks around whipping people, spanking people for $1. And and she was one of my favorite people. My boyfriend paid her to spank me, and it was heavenly. And this huge crowd gathered around and took pictures.
So beautiful. So I have to ask, did you do bare ass, or did you keep your pants up?
Well, she didn't tell me to take my pants down, so I didn't. Not that she told me I would have.
There's more icing to be put on that cake.
Which, I mean, with her
for doing it.
Yeah,
Kudos for doing that.
it felt like an ass massage, and it was hard, it was rough, and it was loud, but I like it rough, and so so it worked for me. What is tell me and we'll be wrapping up here soon, so I just have just 2 questions left. And What is your oh, that's what I was gonna say. You telling me about how you like to spank grown men reminds me of Electra from Pose. And I
It reminds
know
you of what?
Pose is the series on
Oh,
FX, but you can watch it on Netflix now too, about transsexuals and trannies and things like that coming up when HIV and AIDS was a big deal. Billy Porter is in it, and there is somebody in there, one of the main characters, her name was Electra, and she's this really tall, male to female character, originally from Tobago, I believe. And oh my God, her character eventually gets a job working in a dungeon, a sex dungeon in New York,
oh yes.
spanking people, tying men up, humiliating them, things like that, leaving them in cages, and everything like that. And it is such a huge business, it's such a huge fetish, and she charged ridiculous, just gobs of cash, and
And they will pay.
everything like that. And so yeah, hey, I respect the hustle. I don't care. And so, but what is your kinkiest memory, the something really, really spicy that you did that still gets your tits wet to this day just to even think about it?
I went to, in DC, they have the fetish ball every year. And this, of course, is pre-COVID, so pre-COVID. And one of my friends was there and he enjoyed dressing up in poof. Like, so probably he did age play, probably like a 5-year-old girl. I mean, the like Goldilocks, like the curls and all the fluffiness underneath the skirt, I can't think of that word right now. And so anyway, he's like hitting on this dark haired girl and he's kind of, spanking her and kind of playing. And I just thought she was sexy. And so I'm a woman who, asks for what I want or suggests whatever it may be. And so I went over and she laid across my lap and I was like, oh my, like, kind of like, I don't just give this away. Oh, ma'am. And I was like, oh my God, she called me ma'am. And so it was like this huge, like this buildup of sexual energy happening because she was really hot. And so, after I paddled with her or whatever. And then I told her, I said, you'll be going home with me tonight. And I walked out and I walked away and I went on to do whatever I was going to do. And so she's completely like enamored, like, oh my God, it's the fucking unicorn. Yes, I'm going. Fast forward, we are back at the hotel. I mean, I'm trying to sneak my friend in the back door. I mean, in that poof, it's like, we're going to go to jail. She's screaming, you don't know who she is. And I'm like, just get in the hotel room. And so what I did then is I had a boy with me at the time, and protocol is very important to me. And so he was in a tux with tails and the white glove. And his job was to keep my water safe, right? Because of course I don't drink. And so I don't want anything to go into my water. And so he's been in this like really strict protocol. And so then what I do is I get back and I completely seduce him, DSY. I humiliate him. I have him on his knees. This girl is like completely blown away by what's happening. And then I told the poof, the one in poof, I don't even think it's seductive. I told him, I said, you have 2 minutes to get him off. And he was like, but ma'am, I was like, don't you butt me. And so I said, you have 2 minutes. And so he's sitting behind my boy and he's like, dude, I'm not gay. He's like, just do your work. Hurry up. We're going to get our asses paddled. So it's for me, it's that kind of fun stuff like that. And that next morning, actually, I flew out and the two boys were left and something went down where the one in poof had to give my boy bare ass spankings with a paddle and send me pictures because I didn't have time. I was on the flight on my way back home. And so they sending me pictures in first class of, this red bottom. I don't even know if it was sexy, but it made me laugh so hard. We had that night went on forever. I think I got like a half hour sleep before I had to get on the plane.
So did he jack him off? Did he suck him off? How did he get him off in 2 minutes?
Just his hand. He just did his hand. And I don't think he got him off. I don't even think that. I think that's why he ended up getting the paddling the next morning, is because he didn't do as I said. But I ended up taking that woman back into the bedroom. Then she popped that wig off. I was like, fuck, she's a screaming redhead. I was like, oh my God, I'm like, who are you? And then I made my boy tend to me, holding the towel, the lube, the vibrator, whatever I may have need, kind of like a pool boy. Get my towel.
Well, damn, bitch, I can learn some shit from you.
I have a lot of chicks. There's some good ones in the book.
I assume you like redheads by the reaction.
I'd never been with a redhead. That was like the first time ever. No, I'm not keen to redheads. I really enjoy beautiful Black men. To be honest, that's my preference. And any like dark skin is so beautiful. And maybe it's because I'm so pale myself that we always like what we don't have. I don't know. But yeah, she had porcelain-like skin, which I could appreciate, but no, that was a big surprise.
Well, I'm glad you had the time of your life.
Well, obviously I still laugh about it. And that was probably like, I don't know, 8 years ago.
What a fun sexual outlet. And so not only are you a resource for, surviving sexual trauma and addiction and all of that, but also when people are ready to explore, they could just reach out for a little bit or a lot of direction. It looks like you'd be happy to guide them.
I'm very, very much an authoritarian.
Okay. So then I feel like that we have added some serious value to the world today. And I always like to let my guests have the last word. So this is your time to speak to the hurting, speak to the kink community, speak to whomever it is the fuck you would like to, and give them your mind.
We only have one chance to do this life. And from my experience, putting in the work has allowed me a great level of freedom. Going into the dark areas that used to scare the shit out of me and own them. It has allowed me that emotional freedom, which allows me to go into the world much more open and receive some of the most amazing experiences. Like I said, sailing the ocean, diving the deep sea, going off to sex parties, whatever it may be. That is the way I think life is supposed to be led. So I would have to say, don't get tripped up over the little things. It's not worth it. Go big.
Go big or go home. Or just
go home.
Just go big. You like it big.
On that one, we'll leave it right there.
All right, Jules, thank you so much.
Baby, you're welcome. Thank you. This has been fun.
Thank you all so much for taking time to listen to the Sex, Drugs, and Jesus podcast. It really means everything to me. Look, if you love the show, you can find more information and resources at sexdrugsandjesus.com or wherever you listen to your podcast. Feel free to reach out to me directly at devannon@sexdrugsandjesus.com and on Twitter and Facebook as well. My name is Devannon, and it's been wonderful being your host today. And just remember that everything is going to be all right.